Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is daf Kuf Mem Aleph 141 in Maseches Bava Basra. I'm going to open my email and share the screen in order to get started. And here we go. Yesterday we learned a Mishnah that discussed the nature of a tumtum. This is somebody whose gender is unclear. And the Mishnah noted that if a father to be says, yeah, we're going to have some good Rashi and Rashbam. No Rashi, Rashbam today, and we're going to have Tosos today. So the Mishnah noted that if a father to be says that his future child should get $100, then even if it's a tumtum, that's a child. The child, the tumtum would get the money. But if he said that a boy gets $100 and that a girl gets $200, and then he has a tumtum, so that tumtum would receive nothing because it's not a boy and it's not a girl because we don't know. And indeed, the implication of that language is that it's a third item. It's not that we give the tumtum the minimum of a boy or a girl because we're just uncertain between the two, but actually it's a separate item. So as we pick up at the two dots on the third line of Kuf Mem Aleph Amud Aleph, the Gemara wonders why the Mishnah suggested that a father would give more money to a daughter than to a son, right? You should probably give the same. So why? So the Gemara asks, so Ha'omer im yalda ishti zachar v'chulu. So lememra debas adifa le'mebein. Does that mean that daughters are better than sons? It's a good question. V'ha'amar Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Kol she'enu maniach ben yorsho HaKadosh Baruch Hu malei alav evra. That anyone who doesn't have a son to inherit him, it's as if God is angry towards that person. Shene'amar v'havartam es nachlaso livito, and you shall pass your inheritance to your daughter. So ve'ein ha'avara ella evra. So don't read it as avara, to pass, but rather evra, which means anger. Shene'amar yom evra hayom hahu. This is a pasuk in Tzefanya, talking about the day of destruction, and that day of destruction is a day of Evra. Evra there meaning anger. So as a result, this has strengthened the question. Why did our Mishnah specifically suggest that a man was giving his daughter 200 and giving his son only 100 when we see that on some level boys are better than girls? So in Yerusha ben Adivle, yeah, that's true. With respect to inheritance, a son is better. Le'inyan harvacha bitu adifale. But when it comes to ensuring her sufficiency, then daughters are going to be preferred. And Rashbam helps us here to explain both of these concepts. So let's take a look. Second line down in the narrow lines of the Rashbam on Kuf Mem Aleph Amud Aleph. Le'inyan nachla ben adivle yikra shem hames al nachlaso, because the deceased will have his name still connected to his property. Aval habas misabas nachala mimatel acher. But a daughter, when a daughter takes possession of property, she ends up conveying that property to her husband's shevet. So it can transfer property from one shevet to another one. So as a result, a ben is better from that perspective. Whereas Bito Adifa, continuing on in the Rashbam, because a daughter doesn't have the same ability to earn. Obviously, there was an even larger earning gap between men and women in those days. Obviously, we need to work to break down that gap today, but there was a very large gap in those days. And so as a result, a father would give more to his daughter just to ensure her protection and that she had the food to eat. Obviously in those days, food scarcity was a real thing. That it had, obviously it's a real thing today, but it was significantly more severe in those days. Okay, so that is answer number one. Answer number one is that actually, although inheritance boys are preferred, when it comes to providing sustenance, then daughters are going to be preferred. So now that was answer number one. Shmuel gives a different answer. Askinan. We're talking about the oldest child. And so we're talking about a firstborn daughter. Ukid Rav Chisda, Damar Rav Chisda, Bas Tchila Simin Yafa Levanim, that a first daughter is a good sign for sons. Amri one could say, sometimes some people say that it's because she's going to help raise the brothers. The Amri the lo shalta be eina bisha, and some say it's because this way the evil eye doesn't apply. And so two explanations of the evil eye in this concept. One is that either other people outside of that family will be less jealous regarding the sons because he had a daughter first. That's what Rabbeinu Gershom says. Or within the family, when you have a firstborn son, the firstborn son is supposed to get a double portion. But that double portion could cause enmity between him and his siblings. And so as a result, the family might have less stress associated with it. And that's the position of the Maharsha. I didn't write it down. I should add that to the screen. So that's the Maharsha's position. And so those are two reasons why the evil eye would not apply. And Amar Rav Chisda now adds, Uladidi b'nasan adifan li mibnei. He says my daughters are better to me than my sons. So whoa, that's a lot to say, right? You don't usually say that about your children, that you prefer some to over others. So what did he mean? So we're going to take a look at the Rashbam and at Tosos. So in the Rashbam, we're about the 9 lines down in the narrow lines of the Rashbam. Amar Reb Chisda l'didi b'nasan adifanli. To me, my daughters are better for me. East the Mefarshe, some people explain l'Rav Chisda b'mevar keret, that he's talking about the same principle as that we said earlier about the firstborn daughter, Hishmaisin, as we just said. Given that he says to me, that doesn't, it implies something different. It implies something a different kind of statement. So therefore, Venira Be'enai, it seems to me, the Rashbam says, Shalonis Kaimu Lo Banim, that his sons didn't survive. Ki'im Banot, rather he had daughters. Lekach misave haya lebanos velonis yashevli yafa daito. Lekach misave haya lebanos. So that's why he wanted daughters, because his daughters were more likely to survive. But it doesn't sit well with me, this position of Rav Chisda. Now, Tosos says that can't be, because we know Rav Chisda, and he has lots of sons that are referenced throughout Shas. So let's take a look at the Tosos, fourth one from the bottom of the Tosos. Lididi b'nasan adifali mibnei perish b'kuntris shalonis kaimu lo banim, that in fact he didn't have any sons that would survive. Ve'ein nira, but it doesn't seem right. The harbe banim hayu lo. But he seems to have many sons, as we found. Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, which we saw on Daf Chet Amud Aleph, we saw on Daf Zayin Amud Bet, Mar Yanuka, Umar Kashisha b'nei Rav Chisda. We saw Rav Chanan bar Rav Chisda, V'chein Rav Mari, Rav Pinchas b'nei Rabbi Chisda, B'hagozo Basra. So we've seen over the last few Masechtot a number of times. I know that one of them is from Avodah Zarah, but the Avodah Zarah from earlier in Bava Basra, from in Bava Kama, we saw lots of sons that Rav Chisda had. Ella Nira Lari. So what does the Re suggest? That here's the explanation. Why is he preferring daughters to sons? Delahaki Kamar Binatan Adifan Li Mibinai Lebnei Lefi Shahayu Chasanav Gidolei Ador. His sons-in-law were from the greatest of those generation, meaning they were greater rabbis, as great rabbis as Rav Chisda's own sons. He had even greater rabbis as sons-in-law, because Rava, the Rami Bar Chama, Umar Ukva Bar Chama, they were all his sons-in-law. And so as a result, that's actually what he means, that his daughters facilitated having even greater sons-in-law. So that could be the reason that he preferred daughters to sons, because that you get the family you choose as the family you get. Okay, so that is with respect to sons and daughters. So that was answer number 2. So again, answer number 1 is daughters are just preferred from a monetary perspective because we want to make sure that they have food. Answer number 2 is actually daughters are good because we're talking about a first daughter, and daughters help raise younger siblings, and because the evil eye doesn't overpower. So and I can speak personally that I have a firstborn daughter, and who was very helpful in raising our 2 sons. Okay, so answer number 3, the Vayazema Hamani Rebbe Yehuda, that the person who's saying this is really Rebbe Yehuda. Hey, Rebbe Yehuda, what statement of Rebbe Yehuda shows that he prefers daughters to sons? Ilema Rebbe Yehuda de Vakol. Maybe you want to say that it's Rebbe Yehuda that taught about the word bakol, which is in next week's parsha, so we can call this a Daf Yomi coincidence. The Tanya Hashem Beirach as Abraham bakol, that it says that Hashem blessed Abraham with everything. So what does it mean, bakol? Rabbi Meir Omer Shalo Hayalopat. What it means is that he didn't have a daughter, because bakol is ben in gematria. So it suggests that he didn't have a daughter. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shahaiza Lovat Uvakol Shema. No, he did have. Rabbi Yehuda, on the other hand, says he did have a daughter, and bakol was her name. So clearly, this shows that how great daughters are. But Emer de Shmatle le Rabbi Yehuda Brata Nami lo chasre rachmana Avraham. But really, if you think about it, what Rabbi Yehuda is saying is just that Avraham didn't not have a daughter. It's not that daughters are necessarily better than sons, so that doesn't really do it. Now, Tosfos here asks a radical question, according to Rebbe Yehuda. According to Rebbe Yehuda. Take a look at the third Tosfos from the bottom on Kuf Mem Aleph Amud Aleph. Bas Hayalo Uvakol Shma V'im Tomer. And if you want to ask, V'lama Lo Hisia LeYitzchak. Well, 1 second. Why didn't Abraham just have Yitzchak marry this sister? So Lamanda Amar Beperak Arba Misos, because we're going to learn in Masechah Sanhedrin, Daf Nun Chedem Bet, to Ben Noach Mutter Ba'achoto, that there's going to be an opinion that says a non-Jew is allowed to marry their sister. So of course, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov weren't formally Jewish according to this understanding of Tosfos, and therefore they should be able to marry their siblings. And as a result, indeed, of course, some people say that the people who Bnei Yaakov married were all their sisters and their siblings. Maybe she was too young. But of course, that's kind of confusing, because we know the Midrash says that Rivka was only 3 when she married Yitzchak. Below Ratza Adayin Lahasiya, and therefore Abraham didn't want Yitzchak. I didn't want her to marry to Yitzchak yet. So that's answer number 1, which isn't such a great answer. So Inami Mehagar Haita. Or maybe her mother, the daughter Bakol, her mother was Hagar, Haitalo, below Mashra, and she wasn't good. And that's why she didn't want Abraham didn't want this daughter to marry Yitzchak. So I'm sorry, below Misara. And she wasn't from Sarah, and that's why he didn't want her to marry from Yitzchak. So and obviously he wanted somebody from his same family, and so as a result, that's why he sent Eliezer to go, the unnamed servant, to go and get a wife for Yitzchak. Okay, so just a fascinating Tosos there that I wanted to make sure to share. Elaha Rabbi Yehuda. So we've determined that it can't be the Rabbi Yehuda of Bakel because that just tells us that a daughter is something that you would want to have. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a better thing to have than a son. So it must be this Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya mitzvah lazun es habanos, that we have a requirement to support daughters, but kal v'chomer labanim, and even more so, we have a requirement to support sons. To aske b'Torah, because they learn Torah. Divrei Rebbe Meir. That's what Rebbe Meir says. So one could see that Rebbe Meir prefers sons to daughters. But what does Rabbi Yehuda Omer? Rabbi Yehuda says, mitzvah lazun es habanim v'kal v'chomer labanot, that there's a mitzvah to support sons and certainly daughters. The lo litazlan, because we don't want them to be demeaned. We don't want them to be put down, meaning we don't want them to degrade themselves in order to support themselves. So the point is that that's the Kal V'chomer that shows that daughters are preferred, at least with respect to finances, over sons. So we now have three different answers. But bottom line is boys and girls are both wonderful. And we should just appreciate the children that we have, because that's in and of itself is a blessing. Ela Tanya. So what about the following brisa? So now we've gone through all of that, and now the Gemara asks us essentially my apologies for not scrolling, so I'll scroll a little bit. So now the Gemara is going to ask us essentially a brain teaser. So we have a brisa, Ela Tanya. And we're just, for those two just tuning in, we are about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines up from the bottom of Kuf Mem Aleph Amud Aleph, from the bottom of the page in the middle of the line. So Ela Tanya, Yalda Zachar Unekeva, Hazachar Notel Shisha Dinarin, Vanekeva Notel Shnei Dinarim. That we have a situation where a woman gave birth to a boy and a girl, and the boy is going to get as a result 6 dinarim. A dinar is basically like a 25, and so as a result, 6 dinarim is 150 zuz, and the girl takes 2 dinarim, which is 50 zuz. So b'mai, what kind of case are we talking about now? Tosos answer offers the again second to last Tosos on the page. Zachar notel shisha nekeva shnayim heiki mishkachas. What's the case that we're talking about? So deleka lamemer demayri kagon she'amar yalda zachar notel shisha v'nekeva shnayim. Don't tell me that the case that we're talking about is where a father said, if I have a boy, he should get 6. And if I have a girl, she should get 2, because the imkain havalela monaket kamo b'mishnatenu yalda zachar notel matayim unikeva mana. We should have used the same language of our Mishnah where we talked about 100 and 200. Why are we changing the language to dinarin, and why are we ending up with 50 and 150? That seems odd. So clearly we're dealing with some kind of special situation where there was a pronouncement of 100 and 200, and yet nonetheless somehow we ended up with the boy getting 150 and the girl getting 50. So Amar Rav Ashi, Rav Ashi gives the answer. Amrite lishmaita kamei Rav Kahana b'mesares. I told this in front of Rav Kahana, where the father says two things with a reverse. The Amar Zachar Tchila Ma'asayim. He says if a boy is born first, then he gets 200. Nekeva Acharab below Klum. But if he has a daughter afterwards, she gets nothing. On the other hand, Nekeva Tchila Manet. If a girl is born first, she's going to get 100. Zachar Achareha Manet. And if a boy comes after her, he'll also get 100. Meaning that he's going to spend $200 no matter what. If he has the boy first, it all goes to the boy. If he has a girl first, then it's going to be split between the girl and the boy. The Yalda Zachar Onakeva, And in fact, the mother had twins, and they were both a boy and a girl. V'lo yadina heminayu nafak bereisha. But we don't know which one came out first. Was it the boy or the girl? And so, since we don't know which one came out first, Zachar shakel mana mimanafshach. So the boy gets 100 no matter what, because 100 was supposed to go to him no matter what. And idach mana have mamon hamuta basafik v'cholkin. And the other $100 is in doubt, and therefore we split it. Now, this concept of money in doubt gets split is often associated with sumchas. But in general, we say that the halacha is not like sumchas. So the question is, why? How do we deal with that? Is this Gemara effectively following sumchas, and therefore it's not like the halacha, or something else? So Tosfos here again, the last Tosfos on the page, the 4 Tosfos that we'll be doing today. I think that will be it for our Tosfos today. Maybe we'll have one more. And so let's see what he says. L'Rabbanan. So now, according to the rabbis who say the Amri Amotzi Mechaber Olav Araya, who don't say like Sumchus, Havi Hakol B'Cheskas HaZachar. Maybe we should say that the whole thing should belong to the male. Shehu Yoresh La'achar Misa, because he'll inherit it after the death. And so as a result, this statement is really like Sumchus, but the rabbis would say differently. Inami, or you could say, and I think that this is what makes more sense in our Gemara, Afilu Kurabanan, really our Gemara even follows the rabbis. And what? But here we don't have a case of Hamotzi Mechavero of Araya, because the money isn't in either of the people's hands. The point is that we need to do it in the lifetime of the father. And during the life of the father, the sons have no greater rights than the daughters. And so as a result, this is actually a situation of a money that is in a suffix, and there isn't somebody who is a muhsak. There isn't somebody holding it. And so as a result, the principle of amotzi l'mechaveiro olav araya can't apply. And so as a result, because there isn't anybody to sort of hold on to the money, and so as a result, the money is going to get split. And so as a result, that's how we can end up with the daughter getting 50 and the son getting 150. Okay. Now, Tanya, what about the following case? So that was riddle number 1. Now we're going to have riddle number 2. Yalda zakar unakeva ein lo elamana hechi mishkachasla. If a person says that I'm going to if she gave birth to a boy and a girl, that the boy gets no more than 100 zuz, what's that case talking about in the Brisa? Mark, they could use your help. Mark, they could use your help downstairs. Okay, so Amaravina b'mivasreni. So it's not a classic case. It's not actually where we're talking about giving money to the child, but rather mivasreni. We're talking about somebody who gave me the good news. So who's the good news? See you tomorrow. So Titania, hamivasreni b'med niftar rachma. Shel ishti. If I say that whoever gives me the good news about my wife giving the birth, im zachar yitomana. If he tells me that it's a boy that she gave birth to, he's going to get $100. Yalda zachar no tomana. Well, then if in fact she has a boy, and then he needs to give that person who tells him about the boy $100. Im nekeva mana. And if he says, if I have a girl, I'm going to give $100 to her. To the person who tells me, not to the daughter, but to the person who tells me, well, then Yalda Nekeva, no Talmana. So again, if in fact he has a girl, then the informer is going to get $100. Yalda Zakar Unakeva. What happens if the person, after saying, whoever tells me if I have a boy, it's going to be, they're going to get $100, or if I have a girl, that they're going to get $100? What happens if I say that there's a boy and a girl? So Elo elamana. So the informer in that situation only gets $100. Well, one second, v'hazachar unakeva lo amar, but he never said anything about saying whether it's a boy and a girl. So maybe he should get zero, or maybe the person should get $200 because he's told them both a boy and a girl. So the Amar Nami im Zakar Unakeva Nami Yitomana. No, we had to clarify. The Bryce is really saying that even if the person also said, the father also said that if I have a boy and a girl, if somebody tells me that I have a boy and a girl, then that person who told me that is also going to get 100 zuz. So mai. Well, then what kind of child is being excluded in this case? As Rashbam explains, why not Kevan? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 lines up in the narrow lines of the Rashbam on Kuf Mem Aleph Amabet. Element l'meutemai kevan debakol besoros yutol hamavaser mana. Since in all kinds of news, the person who conveys the news is going to get $100. Lo yafresh. What? Let the guy not give any details. Lo zachar v'lo nekeva v'lo tomim. Have him not mention a male or a female or twins. And v'hava le lememar hamivasreni b'men iftar rachma shel ishti yitomana. Let him just say that if whoever tells me that my wife's womb opened up, meaning that she had a birth, that person's going to get $100. Why not just say it in the more simpler way? So what is he coming to exclude? La mu'ute nefel. It's coming to exclude the person, a stillborn child. That if in fact she has a child who is not capable of surviving, well then that's what then there would be no obligation by the father to pay up. Okay, so now we've solved the second riddle, and that brings us to the third topic for our discussion today. And we're going to talk about the ability of an unborn child to make an acquisition. After all, and we're going to cite our Mishnah in this regard, we said that if somebody says that if my wife has a boy, he should get 100, and if my wife has a girl, she should get 200. The implications seem, and then we say that you have to give that money to the child. It seems to be that obligation takes effect, and the child has effectively become the owner of that money immediately in our Mishnah. So let's take a look, because there's going to be a statement by Rav Huna that suggests otherwise. If somebody says to his wife, that my property should go to the one with whom you're pregnant, so then Amar Rav Huna havi mezaka leubar. This person is trying to cause a fetus, an unborn child, to take possession of something. V'hamezaka leubar lo kana. But as somebody who tries to convey something to a fetus has not, in fact, made an acquisition. There is no kinyan associated with that. So in second, Isvei Rav Nachman Rav Huna. Rav Nachman, who we're going to see disagrees with Rav Huna, says to Rav Huna and asks on Rav Huna from our Mishnah, Ha'omer im yalda ishti zachar yitol maneh, yalda zachar no tel maneh. We saw in our Mishnah that if the person says, if my wife gives birth to a boy, he should get $100. So then if she has the boy, he gets the $100. So Amar Le, Mishnah Seinu Eini Yodea Mishnah. So Rav Huna responds, I don't know who taught that Mishnah. And so now the Gemara is going to ask 7 times. Well, 1 second. Do you really not know who taught this Mishnah? We have 7 different possibilities for who taught the Mishnah. And in each case, we're going to explain why it wasn't necessarily that person. So let's go through them. Number 1, V'lei malei Rebbe Meir. Why didn't Rav Huna just say it's Rebbe Meir? Because Rebbe Meir is the one who says, "Da Amar Adam Makna Davar Shelo Bala Olam." A person can convey something that has not yet come into existence, and our understanding at this moment is that the implication is that just as one can say that I can say to you, Stan, that this fruit on this tree, which doesn't yet exist because the tree it's in the middle of winter and it hasn't borne any fruit for this year, and I can say that the fruit on this tree is going to be yours, just as I can do that, maybe I could also say this apple that I'm holding in my hand will go to the unborn child. So maybe that works. So the Gemara, of course, answers, Amor de Shemat le Rebbe Meir, ledavar sheyeshno ba'olam, ledavar she'eno ba'olam, mishamat le. No, when Rebbe Meir made his statement, he was talking about, yes, you can make an acquisition with respect to something that doesn't yet exist, but the person making that acquisition does need to exist. He never said anything about the person making the acquisition not yet existing, so that doesn't work. So v'lemele Rebbe Yossi. So okay, so let's say maybe it's Rebbe Yossi as we offer our second possibility. To Amar Uber Kani, because Rebbe Yossi is the one who says that a fetus does have the ability to make an acquisition. Ditanan Uber Posel ve'enu machal divrei Rebbe Yossi, that a Mishnah that refers to the following situation: a woman is married to a Kohen and is well, you know what? Let's take a look in Rashbam. We'll take a look in Rashbam, and then we'll look in Tosos because there's a little bit of a disagreement. But the bottom line is we'll understand what we're talking about. Ditanan, we are 1, 2, 3 in the widest lines of the Rashbam at the bottom of Kuf Mem Aleph Amud Aleph. We are 9 lines down near the end of the line. Okay, so Ditnan beperek almana b'Yevamos, in the chapter of almana in Maseches Yevamos, Bas Yisrael shenisas lekohen. If you have the daughter of a Yisrael, so a Yisraelite, somebody who's not a Bas Kohen, and she marries a Kohen, umes, and that Kohen dies. And she is left pregnant, but she has no other children. Lo yachlu avdei betruma. The servants of the original Kohen, who was her husband, cannot eat truma. Now, an important rule is that servants of a Kohen are ordinarily allowed to eat truma, but these servants cannot. Because a piece of them is owned by the fetus inside the mother. As is explained over there, de uber b'me'ei zara, that a fetus inside a non-Kohen, zarhu, is considered not to be a Kohen. Sha'ubar posel ve'eno machel. And so what do we mean when we say that the uber is posel ve'eno machel? We mean divrei Rebbe Yossi. We mean that the uber prevents the slaves from actually eating truma, ve'eno machil, and they don't allow the mother to eat truma, because if the mother still has a live birth who is a Kohen, the mother is able to eat truma on the back of that child, of her son who is a Kohen. Kolomer sha'ubar shinis abra Yisraeli, that the fetus that the wife is pregnant with, mikohen, from a Kohen, ba'ala shemes, mikohen ba'ala shemes, from a Kohen who was her husband who died, posel es ha'eved, that fetus prevents the slaves from eating truma, because of the portion that the uber would own, while inside the non-Kohen mother. Zarhu, because that fetus is considered a non-Kohen. V'lo karina be v'yalid beito haim, and it's not called a child. V'yalid beito haim yochlu b'lachamo, that they should be able to eat from it. De'eno yalido shel Kohen, that this is not yet a child of a Kohen. Likros Kohen, to call him a Kohen, ad sheyatzal avir ha'olam, until he comes out to the world. Ve'eno machel esimo, and therefore he also cannot cause his mother to eat, Yisraelit, who is a Yisraelit, she'ibarato mikohen, who is pregnant from a Kohen. The kaimelan hasam she'ochelet betruma b'shvil bana. We are going, that the rule is that a woman who is not the daughter of a Kohen, but she marries a Kohen and has a Kohen as a son, even after her husband passes away, the son is allowed to feed her truma. She's still allowed to eat truma. B'na Kohen, ki'ilu ba'ala Kohen chai. She can eat truma just as if her husband, who was a Kohen, was alive. Kediksiv v'yalid beito heim, because they are all considered members of the same household. Yochlu b'lachmo, they can eat from his bread. Aval ubar, but when it comes to the fetus before he's born, lo, that is not sufficient to allow either the slaves to eat or the mother to eat, the mother / widow to eat. The Sfira Leila Rabbi Yossi, ubar b'me'ez zara zarhu, because Rabbi Yossi believes that the fetus inside a non-Kohen mother is considered a non-Kohen. Kinemafarish Hasam, as explained over there, Shamin and Mia. But nonetheless, what do we see from this? De Uber yeshlo chelik b'ma'e imo, that an Uber can obtain something even when he's inside his mother. De avdei aviv, because he gets a share in the servants of his father, in the slaves of his father. Shemes, who passed away, because he has caused them to be prohibited to eat truma. Alma mizake leuber kana. So doesn't this show that one who causes a fetus to acquire something can acquire something? Ho b'yorish mimela b'nichsei aviv. After all, the heir has inherited the possessions of his father. So that is the explanation. Now we can, let's see, how are we doing on time? Yeah, we have the time to do the Tosos here. So let's jump to the Tosos. Tosos thinks actually it's a different answer. So first he gives the Rashbam's explanation, and he does it in a much shorter fashion. So maybe we should have just done the Tosos. But Ditanan, ha'uber posel ve'ein machil perish Rashbam, posel avde aviv, mila echo betruma, deuber b'me'ei imo zar, that that Rashbam explains that when it comes to the term posel, it's referring to the servants of the father, because the servants of the father cannot eat truma, because a fetus inside of his mother, even if the fetus will be a Kohen, is considered a non-Kohen. Ve'eno machil, and it does not cause to eat. Et imo, meaning, and the fetus also can't enable the mother to eat. De yilud ma'achil. V'she'eno yilod eno machil, because once she has given birth, then she's allowed to eat. But until she has not given birth, when she hasn't yet given birth, then she's not allowed to eat. The Rashi Perish Yevamos, but now we do actually have a Rashi today, but this is a Rashi in Yevamos, and it's being cited by Tosos. Rashi in Yevamos offers a different explanation of this situation. And Be'inyan Acher, he offers a different explanation. Posel esimo, when we say that it causes the mother not to be able to eat this fetus, we're talking about Kohenes imhu zar. We're talking about a daughter of a Kohen who married a non-Kohen, and the non-Kohen then impregnated the daughter of a Kohen, and now has died. And so as a result, you might think that she's entitled to go back to her father's house. So the answer is no, because she's still pregnant, she's not allowed to go back to her father's house. That's what we mean by posel es imo. The eno machil et imo, and also can't cause his mother to eat imhu kohen, if the husband was a kohen, b'me'ei zara, the uber b'me'ei zara zarhu, because again the fetus that's in the unborn fetus that's in the mother who is impregnated by a kohen, and that fetus will become a kohen once she gives birth. When it's inside her, it's not considered a kohen. Ulahai perish lo muchach hachamidi. But when it comes to as to which of these explanations, you can't tell which one is right from our Gemara. Now, Tosos then goes on to reject a third explanation, but we can skip that because, again, that's going to be rejected, and I want to make sure that we have enough time to get through all 7 of our approaches. So now, shiny Yerusha, haba me'eleha. So back into the Gemara, and we're now right basically smack in the middle, right opposite the last word on the line, opposite the Tozos Ditnan that we just learned. The word shiny is there. Shiny Yerusha Bameleha. That maybe, although Rabbi Yossi allows a fetus to make an acquisition, maybe it's only an acquisition through inheritance, which happens automatically. So v'leimale Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka he de Amar Loshna Yerusha v'Loshna Matana de Tanan. So in second, let's go to a third possibility. So now we're going to offer a third answer. Maybe it should be Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, because Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka is the one who said that it doesn't make a difference. He doesn't differentiate between inheritance and presence, because the Tan Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka Omer im Amar al Misha Roy Liyorsho Dvarav Kayamin, that if you make a gift among your children and say that one should get more and one should get less, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka says that that's a valid gift. And at the moment, we assume that that means even among heirs who haven't yet been born. So Emer de Shamat le Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka l'davar sheyeshno ba'olam l'davar she'eno ba'olam mi amar. But one second, that's only allows you to do it if somebody already exists. But maybe for somebody who does not exist, we wouldn't allow him to do it. So okay, so therefore our third effort has been rejected. V'leimale Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. So now we're going to combine Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka and the Savar Law Rabbi Yossi, and he also agrees with Rabbi Yossi. So we're going to combine answers number 2 and 3 to say Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka doesn't differentiate between inheritance and gifts. And Rabbi Yossi is the one who says that inheritance can happen inside the mother's womb. So if you don't differentiate between inheritance and gifts, and you also say that inheritance can happen inside the mother's womb, so then the gift should also be able to happen inside the mother's womb. So in second, miyamar desavarla, but that still doesn't necessarily work, because how do you know that Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka agrees with Rabbi Yossi? We have no evidence of that fact. So as a result, our fourth effort has also been rejected. So v'lei malei mivasasreni. 1 second. Maybe our Mishnah. Remember, the question that we're asking is, who's the author of our Mishnah, who says that who appears to say that if I say if my wife gives birth to a son, the son should get $100, and thereby suggesting that an ubar has the right to make a kinyan. And of course, Rav Huna was the one who said that's not the case, that an ubar cannot make a kinyan. So how does Rav Huna understand our Mishnah? And Rav Huna ended up saying, I don't know who our Mishnah is like. And now we're trying our fifth effort to say that Rav Huna should have been able to answer who the Mishnah is like, because Leimale Mivasreni, why not let Rav Huna say that our Mishnah is actually like the opinion that says that is actually not talking about a gift to the child at all. It's talking about a gift to the person who tells me about my having a child, who gives me the good news. So now that doesn't work. And as a result, that person's alive. So of course I can make a kinyan to him. No, ihachi de katani seva v'im ein sham yorish elahu yorish hakol. But 1 second, the end of our Mishnah talks about the fact that there's no other heir. So and that the tumtum is going to inherit everything. Imam Masreni, if our Mishnah was really talking about the gift going to the person who told me, Yorish Mayavite, why are we talking about inheritance at all at the end of the Mishnah? So that can't be. It can't be talking about giving the gift to somebody who gives me the news. Bishiyalda. So 1 second, maybe we're dealing where the situation where the baby was already born, the father just didn't know what the gender was. Well, ihachi dekatani seifa v'im amar kol masha teled ishti yitol harei yitol. But 1 second, the end of our Mishnah referenced specific language that makes clear that the birth has not yet happened, because the man says, whatever my wife gives birth to, which is implying in the future, that child shall take the amount. Well, and then we say that the tumtum takes. Kol sheteled, kol sheyalda mibayle. It shouldn't say whoever she gives birth to. It should be whoever she gave birth to. So that doesn't work either. And so as a result, we come to our final possible explanation, and it will also be rejected. The lema, and let's say lemale de amar likisheteled. Oh, let's say that what really happened in our Mishnah is the father said, when she gives birth, then the baby's going to acquire the $100 or the $200. And as a result, it is not in fact a transaction to somebody who doesn't yet exist. It's a transaction now that's going to take effect when the child exists. And so shouldn't that work? No. And even Rav Huna says that that doesn't work. Rav Huna l'taimei. Rav Huna can't say that that's what our Mishnah is talking about. Da'am Rav Huna, aflikasheteled lo kana. Even if you were to say, when the mother gives birth, that is not sufficient, because the point is that when you say even when you say that in the future, it's the child still doesn't exist right now, and because the child doesn't exist right now, even though you're trying to say that the child will only make the acquisition in the future, you can only cause somebody to make an acquisition in the future if they exist right now, according to Rav Huna. And so as a result, this does not work. And so that is why Rav Huna said, I have no idea who the author of our Mishnah is. Now, Rav Huna is not the only opinion. There's actually a three-way argument about the ability of a fetus to make an acquisition. But for that discussion, please stay tuned for tomorrow's daf. So we will pick up from there, God willing, tomorrow. Looking forward to continuing our learning together. Have a wonderful day.